Greetings, Jules. Thank you so much. We're back. We're back, even though the time difference. Yeah, but we already, again, in the same day, even though it's night, it's yours. And yeah, it's morning, beautiful morning. We did have a few sirens over the last night, but it is something that somehow you're getting adjusted to, somehow it's becoming your reality. And we mentioned that yesterday as well with the guys on the introductional Zoom, that sooner or later you adjust your body, your brain, your mind even, adjust to this reality. And when it comes to the mind, which is the power for the brain, which is the resource, our main, and correct me if I'm wrong, our main mission here is to save that mind, is not to let mind to get corrupted.
To be invaded.
Invaded, thank you.
Yeah.
By the occupation, by the aggressor.
Yes.
So thank you so much. And today we're carrying on. We covered yesterday a definition of post-traumatic syndrome,
Yes.
And, how to define it. So today's section, we deal with the development of psychotraumatic syndromes factors, right?
Yes, factors.
Factors, right.
Factors.
And in the English version, it's page number 6. In the Ukrainian one, it might be number 7, but guys,
yes.
Definitely.
Okay, very good. So in this section, development of psychotraumatic syndromes, factors, the focus is on different factors that will affect the answer, the response to a traumatic event. So we have factors related to the event itself. We have factors related to the individual, and then we have factors related to the milieu. So we have 3 kinds of factors that can influence the response we have to a traumatic event. So the factors related to the event itself, we have the intensity and the seriousness of the event. Sometimes it's very intense, it's very dangerous, exposure to a life danger, torture, barbarity, values and taboo transgression, like in rape, and serious physical wounds with important or irreversible sequelae, death of close people in violent condition. When we witness that, when we witness the death of someone else, when we are confronted to serious wounds of somebody else, when we witness massive destruction of a village or a town, or violence within the family. So this is one kind of very important factor that will influence the severity of our response to the event. The second one is the exposure level to traumatic factors, the length of the event. Let's take again a very simple thing. You are climbing on a ladder and the ladder falls. It takes few seconds. It is an accident. It is maybe causing the death of somebody, but it is a sudden, very fast accident. But you have some events that last a long time, like torture. People will be tortured during hours and hours and day after day, and this is absolutely horrible. The recurrence of risk or the recurrence of deleterious events. So we talk time to time of the sirens and of the possibility of missiles. So this is a risk which is recurring all the time. So with time, we become less and less able to support it. So we have to understand that. The frequency of critical events, the multiplicity of traumatic factors, physical closeness to a potential traumatic event. Are we close? Are we far? Is it something very simple or something very complex? So these are the traumatic factors. Third, the unpredictability and uncontrollability of the event. Sometimes it is something that we can control, and sometimes we just can't help. We can't do anything. We just are the victim, seeing passively, helplessly to what is happening. The intentionality to harm, the fourth one, this is a very, very important thing. Some people intentionally want to aggress, to harm us. And this is different from an accident. And the last one, in relation to the event, is that you will have somebody who will stand there and will refuse to give you some assistance. This is dramatic for me. The person is available, you see she is there, she is, or he is a witness, doesn't do anything and leave you like that. This is, I found that tragic. In big cities, we often have this situation in which somebody is aggressed in the street by somebody else and no people react. They just stand there, don't do anything, they don't intervene, and it's I find that tragic. I will tell you a story in which I was. It was in a psychiatric hospital. Each Thursday afternoon, we were receiving a seminar or a presentation, scientific presentation from a psychiatrist, from a psychologist about medication, anything about psychiatry. That Thursday afternoon, we had one psychiatrist who came to discuss one issue that was common, but nobody was talking of it. It was the possibility of aggression from the patient toward the professional. And in the office where I work with other professional, we have been, all of us, aggressed at least once, but sometimes with patients who are schizophrenic, it's like their force is amplified and they don't know what they do. So when they knock you, it could be very, very dangerous. So this psychiatrist decide to present the subject and discuss the subject with the professional. And then what happened is that one of his patients was out of control and was shouting in the corridor And then this patient entered in the conference room, walked to this psychiatrist, took the table and jumped on the table and I don't know how to say that, reverse the table. So he put the table down. I was sit at the first row. Instantly, when I saw that, I run to master this patient and to help this patient not to do anything else and to protect himself from himself. But you know what? I was the only one. I was the only one to react instantly. After 1 minute, then the other people come, but they were in state of shock, not knowing what to do. And what we learned after, this was a play prepared by the psychiatrist with that patient to make us react to it was a very, very good, I would say, situation that we discuss a lot afterwards with the patient who played a role in it. It was a very, very good. And then afterwards and for years, each time I met the psychiatrist, he was saying each time, "You saved my life. You saved my life." So I was working in a ward in which we could anytime be aggressive. This is a factor of unpredictability. So it's an example. It's an example. Now we have the factors related to the individual. So the first series is the event, the second is the individual. We have the gender. We understand that sometimes a man can defend himself better than a woman in front of a big 6-foot guy. The personality and vulnerability factors of the person. Does that person went through previous traumatism? And in my document, we have a section on that later. The previous personal events, physical and psychological condition at that moment for that person. Is that person ill? Is that person in with a disability to walk and to express herself? The previous psychological functioning, is that person depressed, anxious, psychotic? The medical and psychological case history, and the empathic vulnerability. So these are the factors related to an individual. And a third one is the level of psychological preparation. Lack of experience may put someone at risk. In my work, I had once to present opening presentation to a large congress of police officers. There were 600 in the room. It was large. I have the Ministry of the Justice, the director of the police, and everything. This happened at a moment where it was in 2012. In Montreal, we have huge manifestations of students who were asking for free education in the university. And we had clashes between the police officers and the students. And I was myself on the side of the students, and then I was presenting to 600 police officers. And I told them that I understand they have to protect the society, but we are here in this Congress to think about this situation. And I was saying to them that we have to understand what is behind the demands of these students. They want access to education, and the best way to prevent crime is education. So I was explaining that to this police officer. But to prepare my presentation, I went working with them in patrol cars. So I went with them, I was with them with everything to protect myself. And I was doing many interventions with them. But we specialize, the police I was working with, we specialize with mental health issues, because this is my specialization. Doing that, it's like it was an adaptation for me to the work of police officers. After that, I never saw the same way the police officers themselves. After that, it happened few times that I had to ask police officers to come to my office because I had an uncontrolled patient and we had to help him to go to an hospital. Once I was working in a difficult file situation, and then some criminal tried to intimidate me and shout in my window in my office. So again, I had to ask police officers to come, but now I am used. When I meet with them, I shake and, you know, I am in charge. And it's funny because they come and I tell them who I am, what I do, I work with them. So it's going easy. If I did not have this experience, I would not be able to feel relaxed as that with them. So this is just a little example that explain, you know, I work in courts. So now going in courts for me, it's not a problem. It's easy. The experience. So sometimes you are in the front of an event which is totally new for you, and you don't know how to react, how to adapt. So this, as this item, the level of psychological preparation is something very important.
Well, that's what we spoke and mentioned yesterday. It's 2014. It's for some, it started physically because
That's it.
Financially and intellectually, it started for everyone in 2014.
Yes.
But emotionally and physically, it started for some of us in 2014, and now.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So
It's a repetition now.
2014, yeah, the people, Ukrainians, who had to face that in 2014, they sort of keeping us stronger now. People who are, unfortunately, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the fourth item is the degree of responsibility of the victim in triggering and or unfolding the event. This is for an accident. Sometimes you are doing something and you harm somebody else. And, you know, I heard once very bad story. It was a client. He went in his car in just beside the house, and he had to go back. So he looked in the mirror, every side, left, right, the rear, it was all clear. And suddenly he heard something. It was his children of 2 years old who was, he could not see the children. He killed the children. This is an accident. And this man is inconsolable. It's impossible for him to overcome the guilt and the loss of that children. This is an accident. This is the responsibility of the victim. Psychological inner conflicts. We may have different sorts of conflicts. We may have conflicts around anger, around depression, around guilt, moral conflicts. We can have all that, and then we're confronted to an event. So this will play a role. It will complexify the response to the event. And at the opposite, the coping strategies. What I was describing you, life gave me the opportunity to develop a lot of coping strategies because of my work, because of everything which is dangerous I work with, military officers. I am in contract now, under contract with a train company. If they have an accident anywhere in Canada, they will call me and they will fly me to there to help their people, their employees who will be in state of trauma. So, you know, I am used. So I do have this coping strategy, but it's not anybody, it's not everybody who had the chance to develop that. So we have to take that into account. And the 7.1, the positive outcomes of the traumatic event. Sometimes something very bad will happen for somebody, and for somebody else, it will be something positive in his life. I will give you dramatic example of that. And during the Second World War, when the Nazis were chasing the Jews, then they were taking these people and sending them to camps. But this was giving the opportunity to non-Jews to take the apartment or the house or the furniture in the apartment or the house. I would say these people, I hope that they felt guilty afterwards, but you saw that in France and in Poland, many places, many people benefit from that, which is cruel for me, but this is what happened. At the next page, in English, the cognitive factors, the belief, and including religious beliefs, they are important. They can help. And the last one, causal attribution, the way a person makes sense with a traumatic event. Some people are unable to integrate and to make sense with what happened. And this person, it is like they receive, let's say, particles of an explosion inside their body or a bullet, and it stays there and they can't do anything with it. They can extract it. It will not disappear by itself. We call that an external, and it's difficult to say it in English. It's something from the outside world that comes inside and stay intact. It doesn't disappear. It is not integrated by the body. It's not dissolved. It stayed there and makes damages. Now, the third series of factors, they are related to the milieu, so the environment. So you may have the presence or the absence of a social network. So some people are very isolated, and some people, they have family, they have friends, they have colleagues. So the network is important. Second, the family mood before the traumatic event. Was the family happy, unhappy, in conflict, depressed, anxious? This will have an effect on the response to the traumatic event. Third, the stability or instability of the environment. If you are in an environment which is very, very stable, you are in a neighborhood which is stable, with stable people around you, this is something. But if you are not, this will add the anxiety to the response. Fourth, the support capacity of relatives. Are the relatives able to help and support ourselves? You have situations in which the aggressor is a member of the family, of close relationship, yes.
Yeah, and here I'm maybe jumping ahead, but this factor, number 4, that deals with relatives, is a very distinct factor, and it is real in Ukraine regarding the cultural issues. Not issues.
Yes.
Sorry, I can't even call it an issue, because it's more of a propaganda that's being, planted in our identity for a very long time. So now talking about family, the inner family's conflicts, and a lot of people now, they say no to either their mothers or to their siblings or to very close family, immediate family, and they're taking that responsibility, and they're taking these choices due to their passport, due to their nationality. And it cannot be healthy, it is healthy for the identity evaluation, if I may, or for the reasoning of your identity. But in your inner personal world, it is obviously going to hurt. Maybe not just now, after some time, but some people are burning those bridges, not aggressively. They try over the years. We're not talking about 2022. We're talking about ever since, So there's a lot of these factors that are taking place.
Yes. Yeah. All this becomes a kind of checklist when we want to work with somebody. Do you have relatives? Do you have support? and all this. So I develop a scale, I reproduce a scale. I want to be honest, it's not my scale, but with all these factors, we could have a questionnaire. I did not do it yet, but I will do it in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
that
sir.
would be a good idea.
Absolutely.
So the fifth one, support from the colleagues and the organization. Sometimes you work somewhere and you have very, very good colleagues who help you, who support you. And then the larger community can support you too with programs. And the last one, access to mental care. So this is what I would say we need, and this is why we are here. That's okay. Now we go to a next section, the fifth one. Would you have any comments or other questions on that one, or it's
No,
okay?
thanks, Josh. Yeah,
It's
I
okay.
meant, yeah, just regarding the fourth one, but obviously all of them are taking place in your print. All of them,
Good.
you can just see these in action, in practice.
Yeah, good. So
you.
the fifth one, we talk of previous psychotrauma. You are talking of in Ukraine in 2014. So this is the first psychotrauma. The one now is open this previous one. So we have to consider that. Why? And there is a question. Why certain persons react excessively to a mild traumatic event, whereas others don't manifest any reaction to an extremely traumatic event. So you have two different situations, a little traumatic event and a big one, and then you have two different reactions. So I develop an answer to that to understand the people who work with traumatized people. A part of the answer concerned what we call predisposition, which can be represented as fertile ground. A traumatic event is never in itself the only and unique cause of a psychotrauma, which is the immediate reaction, or of a post-traumatic stress, which is a dysfunctional long-term reaction. We always have to distinguish the immediate reaction and the long-term dysfunctional reaction. So a part of the answer concerns the predisposition. In the first case, excessive reaction without the person being conscious of it, this event triggers the emotions connected to past traumatic events. You remember we talked of the process of emotional transference. So the emotion related to a situation in the past then transfer itself to the present situation. So without the person being conscious of it, this event triggers the emotion connected to past traumatic events, emotion that stayed unassimilated and at the same time forgotten. So we are not conscious, but it's there as the bullet, not assimilated. In the second case, absence of reaction, the person unconsciously block herself or himself from his or her emotions, there is a block. It's like you disconnect from yourself. You just don't feel anything. You are frozen. You are frozen. In the first case, the past events may have been more traumatic or less traumatic than the present one. The psychotrauma or the long-term psychotraumatic stress that follows are reaction to the present event and at the same time to these past events, which are now being emotionally reactivated. So you have one event and then you have a chain of the past one and the other one and the other one. So you may have a long chain of events, and all this suddenly you feel all the emotion related to them. It was sleeping, you know, when we say that it was unconscious, it was sleeping. We were unaware of that. Suddenly it pops up and we feel everything from all these events. So this explains the excessive reaction to something.
Just one observation. Would it deal with, say, hypothetically, or not really, but people who were faced with the war in 2014, and that was their first traumatic experience in the war times, and if, say, they weren't treated properly, they weren't given mental health support, they weren't given a floor to, or a safe environment to work through that experience, would you say that it now, after 8 years, and having a second wave of something similar that they went through, but would you say that the second time might trigger something more than for the people who are experiencing it for the first time? Or it's difficult to say?
I would answer if some people experience the 2014 situation and have been treated, I think that they will cope more positively to the present traumatic situation, because they will have developed means and mechanism to adapt, and they will use this mechanism in the present situation. So if they were well treated and completely treated, they will react better to the present situation. If they were not treated, then they will react to the present situation with the emotions of the past trauma of 2014. So it will be an addition of a reaction, you see?
Thank you, yeah.
So
do we have to take that in consideration when talking to them and when having evaluation as such?
It is a question to ask to the people, where were you in 2014? How were you affected by this situation in 2000? This would be one of the most important questions to ask. Yeah, absolutely. Good. Yes, I wrote for certain individual in certain circumstances, this chain reaction is responsible for excessive repercussions of one objectively minor event. You see, you may have just a little accident, or somebody it's not pleasant with you, and then you react, you have an outburst. There was nothing, but you react. I saw that yesterday between two of my students. One said something, the other one took it personally. She reacted very aggressively. There was no reason. And then the first one react to this reaction, and so we are talking of this a chain reaction in that situation. I tried to calm things down, but it went very far. And now we need the lawyers to solve the problems because, because now they feel they have been intimidated by one and another, and then it goes fast, you know, with text messages. When people don't control themselves, they may become very impulsive and aggressive, and this is what happens. So for just a little anything, I would say, they built up a big issue with it, and they will have maybe to face charges in court. They will have to present themselves in court. Now we are at point 6, psychotrauma's complication. So I just remind that we have an event. This is the first thing. We have a reaction, immediate reaction. This is the second thing. If we are unable to adapt, then we have a long-lasting dysfunctional reaction, which is called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. If we don't treat that, then we have other complications. These complications are always around depression and anxiety, but it might be worse for individuals who are fragile and unstable. Some complications could be psychosis. So, but I would say that the main complications that we will have is that some people will become very depressed and unable to take care of themselves, or they will develop severe anxiety disorders. And when we have that, we can't sleep, we can't eat, we can't concentrate, we absolutely have to take medication. We are uncontrollable. So these are the common complications we may have if the PTSD is not treated. So now we go to the point 7, the screening. It is a very simple and very fast screening. If you ask this question to somebody, you will have a figure. You will have a picture of is that person in the stage of immediate reaction, of PTSD, or complications. So I will pass them in review. So we can ask, do you have invading remembrances or dreams about the traumatic event? So memories and dreams, which lead to physical and mental, and when I say mental, is psychological and emotional distress. The word distress is the important word. Do you have memories and dreams that cause distress for you? Second, do you have sudden reactions of going through the traumatic event again? Do you have the feeling that it's repeating and that you have flashbacks? Flashbacks is invading images of the event. Third, do you avoid any kind of element linked to the traumatic event? If this event happened in a metro, do you take the metro, or did you stop to take the metro? Did you stop to go to this neighborhood, let's say? I have one patient who developed anxiety disorders after, I would say, a dramatic, loving relationship she had with another girl. It was two girls. And she became so obsessed with the danger to meet that girl again that she took a map and she established all the streets they went on together, and that she had to not go there. So it was neighborhoods, it was streets, it was buses, metros, everything. She was unable to relate to anything, the color of un vêtement, how we said that, what you wear, a coat, let the color of a coat, the color of a jacket, the color of a skirt, things like that.
So even clothes.
Yeah, sure. The fourth one, we may ask, do you have trouble with your memory concerning the event? Do you remember, or do you don't remember what happened? Sometimes people, they just don't remember. It's, again, it's an automatic mechanism. You close the window, that's it. Decrease of interest in life, in activities, in relationships, and feeling of detachment and feeling of dead end in life. So it's like you don't have any more life. It's finished for you. You are detached from yourself. You don't feel anything. You don't have an interest. In psychiatry, this is always a question. Do you have still interest in your work, family, friends, hobbies? If you don't have any more interest, something is going wrong. When somebody is alive, he has a lot of interest. It's like we never have enough time to do everything that we want to do. But when we are depressed, we have a lot of time and we don't desire anything. Desire is vanish. 6, excessively accentuated or reduced emotional expression. It's flat. Or the opposite, we react to anything. So we are too reactive or not enough reactive. We have sleep disorders. We sleep all the time. I have one patient, recently we were able to help her to get out of a depression, a deep, deep depression. She tried to kill herself in last November, and I worked intensely with her December, January, February, March, April, May, and now. She slept all the time. She could sleep 24 hours a day. She was, and when she wake up, she is a student. She tried to work. She was unable. After 1 hour, she was tired. She went back to sleep 23, 24, 25, 26 hours. And you do have people who it is the opposite. They don't sleep. They sleep half an hour and then their eyes is wide open. So you have the two extremes. The item 8, inappropriate irritation or sudden fits of anger. You become suddenly very, very angry and without any reason. And 9, you can't concentrate. It's impossible for you to concentrate. You try to keep your mind, but you can't. And the 10th one, you can have hypervigilance. So you are over aware of everything, and you have outbursts in front of very insignificant stimulus. So you hear just a little noise and then it's a big thing for you. So this is a short screening that when we ask that to people who went through psychotrauma, we can ask that in the following days or weeks, and then we can evaluate. Are we in a PTSD, or are we in a situation in which the person is able to assimilate and is doing assimilation? Voila. So that's the first part of the theory. It is the concepts. Now, after, if you have some questions, I will answer to that. But then we can talk of psychological interventions.
Thank you.
In this
I just have one question. It's it's under screening. It's number 3, avoidance of traumatic event. So what we're experiencing now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just observation. Can I say that people in Ukraine, we have people who still don't respond to this war as their war as well. We still have people who just saying or feeling maybe that it hasn't happened to them physically, meaning that automatically they transfer it to the fact that it's not my war. So up until, if it's at some point, I'm not here to, justify or bring it or judge, but is it a defense mechanism? Is it just them trying to, as much as they can to dislocate themselves from the rest of the people who are around us? Like we have, temporary, so is that or is it avoidance?
You have the good word. It is a defense mechanism. You use that word. We have to understand that this concept of defense mechanism is something in the psychoanalytic theory. So it is something very precise. We do have a lot of defense mechanisms. These mechanisms help us to adapt to two things: what we have inside us, the emotion, the desires, the aggressivity, the anger, the guilt, and we have to adapt we have to make a connection between these internal, I would say, factors with the external reality. So the concept of defense mechanism is one which we use unconsciously. We are not aware doing that. It's unconscious. One of these is called isolation. And it is exactly what you are describing. We isolate two contents, or we isolate ourselves from a situation, and we say, I am not part of that. This doesn't concern myself. I don't have anything to do with that. I am not related to that. Isolation, disconnection. It's a way to protect ourselves. I would say that most of the time we do that unconsciously. But you may have some people who are very conscious of what they are doing, and they say, this is not of my business, and I know I could be involved in that. I could help, I could be empathic. I don't want to be with these people. And I would myself, I would say a judgment about that. These people are unable to connect and unable to be empathic. They are selfish and ego-centered, you see. So they are unable to socialize with other people and to help other people. It's like we see that many times. Somebody who suffers of something, and you have someone who pass by and just look the other direction. For me, it's
that point. Sorry, it's that point that you said. Remember, it was today, right? One of the when you don't get a support, when people around you, right? Like the example that you presented to us in your clinical, clinical work.
Yes,
the role play. So
I will find it. I will find it somewhere. Yes, page 7.
Right?
Refusal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's point number 5.
Yeah, and I would say conscious refusal. For me, this is very aggressive. When you know that you can help somebody and you just refuse to do that. For me, it's inhuman. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not, I just mentioned that because it's not on a big scale, because of course Ukrainians, they are very united, and people who weren't that united in 2014, now, you know, they're reliving it in a different scale, because everyone knew about what's going on, everyone was aware, but we had more people who both subconsciously and consciously avoided that reality.
Yes,
and now
absolutely.
we've been, well, in a bad and a good way, we've been put much closer to the fact of having to help, being, you know,
Yes.
you don't have any other choice anymore.
You don't.
You don't have
You
right.
can't help.
Mhm.
Everybody is concerned now.
Exactly.
When you have missiles that arrive in Kiev on a Sunday morning, everybody is concerned. Yeah.
Thank you.
But this happen in each community, in, you know, every place in the world. This is the, I would say, the progress of civilizations. It is, in psychologically, in my eyes, the capacity to be empathic to the other. And I think that the development of a civilization, it's that, the possibility empathic and to care for somebody else. When we go 100 years ago, we did not have that. And when we go 100 years again in the past, we see that people were not able to be empathic to others. This is something that we develop in modern society. I would say that there is a danger. The danger is social networks that reverse this tendency. But this is something else that maybe one day we will discuss, but it's not the subject of. But the communication with the internet help a lot to being empathic, but we have to control our impulsivity in the use of it. We have to control that. Okay, now something else you would like to say before?
Yes, today, yeah, I wanted to ask you one thing, but maybe it can be dealt today. Talking about genetical memory in terms of Ukrainians and in terms of our very difficult genome, if I may. By difficult, I mean throughout the history, unfortunately, Ukrainian nation and Ukrainian DNA, sorry, it had been suppressed, it had been consciously chased, you know, consciously terrorized. But can we use that as a resource? Can we use that in our modern society, in our modern contemporary life, and with this current war? Can we somehow sort of restructure that genetical pain? Because yes, I do feel as a human being, I do feel for generation of my grandmother, of my mother, I do feel both related and empathetic, but also it makes me stronger because I have no right to disregard what they went through and to put myself, to allow the outer world to treat me the same way they were. So is there something?
It is a very good point. I am thinking to two other nations who are in the same position, I would say, Armenians who suffered a genocide, and the Jews, and many others. And this can become a strength. We can use that as a force inside us to be able to fight for our survival. Yes, so it's a very, very good point, because this past history, you know, we have something, it's not the same, but in Quebec, you know that in Canada, you have only one province who speaks French. It's Quebec. All the other provinces, they speak English. So these provinces, they were under the authority of Great Britain, but Quebec was under the authority of France. And the Great Britain tried everything they were able to assimilate the Quebec population, France, Quebec population, to the Great Britain, but they did not succeed because the strength of this very little population, they were left alone, because with this story, they came in 1600 here in Quebec, and then the France did not keep, I would say, protection for them. So they were really left alone, and they used that isolation to develop a strength as a nation. And this is why up to now, 2022, we speak French here in Quebec. I think that the mondialization, unfortunately, we speak more and more English here in Quebec, but you have this same phenomena everywhere in the world. But it's a very good point, and it's a force on which we can
build.
We can use as a support for our present adaptation to this war. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, because a lot of it also deals with the fact that in previous cases of terror, people were not allowed to talk about it. People were,
Oh, yes.
It wasn't even that they weren't allowed. They were actually ending up in prisons or in camps, or
Yes.
or some other results of
absolutely,
the dictatorship and how they maneuvered and masterfully misled us to
yes,
where we are at the moment. So there's a lot of unspoken hurt, there's a lot of unresolved traumas. But now
and when we want to destroy a nation, we destroy the memory of the nation, and we destroy what has been written. So we make disappear the libraries, books, history of the nation. We want to destroy the reality of that nation and the remembrance of that nation, which is inhuman and unacceptable. Yeah.
But then again, it gives us
Okay.
a resource. It gives us another extra level of responsibility,
Yes.
realization
Yes.
that we cannot allow that to happen, because as an ethnic group, as a culture, you cannot destroy that as long as we are devoted to that, as long as we don't let our mind to get invaded. So
I listening to you, I'm just thinking to something which is very personal, is that a person like me coming from Quebec can identify with Ukrainians because you have an invader. For us, it was the English people. Now, now I do have now friends who are English in Canada. I have good friends and all this, but the Quebecers had to fight for their survival. We have to remember that it was not easy. We were isolated. We have not been in a war. The only war we had, and I can't I can't not smile, length only 45 minutes, and that's it. The conquest was done after 45 minutes, and it was in 1604, something like that. It's passed over. But we were, since then, we did not have a war in Quebec, but we had a constant tension with the rest of the Canada, which we call the ROC, ROC, the rest of Canada, which means, and up to now, in our chamber in the Canadian Parliament, we always have tensions between the other provinces and Quebec, but we are not in war. You know, it's not the same thing. But this little comparison helps me to identify to your community. But this is personal, you see.
Yeah, thank you.
I am not an American from a super great country. I am not an English Canadian. I am somebody who is in a state of inferiority in his country. So we share something, you see?
Exactly.
Okay.
Thanks, Jess.
Good. So now we talk of psychological interventions.
Oui.
It's okay?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So it's page 10, English version. The psychological intervention, and we talk of psychotherapeutic treatments that serve to assimilate or digest, it's the same thing, a psychotrauma, or to reduce a post-traumatic stress disorder, include the following processes. So I developed 10 I would say it's not factors, but it's tools. I would say tools. You know, with Julia, we were talking of instruments. I would say that we have here 10 instruments. The first one, and for me, the most important one, is always the language, talking, the process of putting words on emotions in order to better master and canalize them. We cannot do that without expressing ourselves in words. So the function of language for me is the most important thing that is used in therapeutic settings. I was saying to our webinar, ask the people to tell the story and ask that person to tell again that story. Each time we help somebody to repeat the story, we help that person to master the emotions. You know, when we lose somebody, when some of our relatives die, what do? We meet together, and the closest person to this person who died often do the same thing. She or he repeats the circumstances in which the death happened, and this person repeats and repeats. And I saw that, you know, at my age, I went to many meetings for many people who died around me. So I saw that so many times. And some people, they want to say to that person, you said that 3 times, it's not necessary to repeat yourself. And then I intervene each time and I say, let that person repeat it again and again and again and again. So the function of language is so important. That's the first thing. The second thing is the restoration of connections between thoughts, memories, and emotions. When you have a trauma, it's like an inner explosion. Everything goes in different directions and disconnected. You have memories, you don't feel anything. You have emotion, it's not connected to something. So we have to put all this together and we have to make connections. So when I ask somebody to tell the story, I ask, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And how do you feel? Tell me, how do you feel? How do you feel presenting that to me now? And sometimes the person will say, I don't feel anything. I'm just telling you that I don't feel anything. Then I force the person, okay, stop. If you were hearing that story from somebody else, what would you feel? Then it ends, the person will say, I would find that sad. Okay, so come back into your own personality, and you went through that. Don't you feel sad that this happened to you? And I force the reconnection. You see, this is a very important tool. We will have to discuss that. I will discuss that at the workshop. For me, it's too important. Third one, catharsis of the traumatic event. This word, catharsis, means the revival and expression of the emotions related to the event, but in a secure frame. Sometimes you will have a huge emotional how can I say that? Expression, a huge emotional expression, but it is in a protecting group. It is in a safe place, a safe nest, a safe shell. It is with the healthcare practitioners. It is in my office. So it is a place where you can cry and deeply, and you can make noise. There's no problem. I will give you an example. I had a young woman. I worked with her many years. She had a trauma. I could, with the information I had, I could place the trauma at around 3 or 4 or 5 years old. I was not sure, but it was around that time of her childhood. I didn't know what happened, but I was sure that something happened. We tried to find it. We tried to force memory. We could not find it. One day, I asked her to ask her mother to come to an interview. And then previously, I called the mother and I asked the mother to make a story of the development of her child from 0 to 10, up to 10. What happened to that child from the birth to 10? I did not want to give her any cues. So, but I was sure that that window I would find something. Yes. So this mother came to my office. She explained that her child, when she was, her birthday was in January. So she was on her 5th birthday. The mother but the child didn't know that at all. The mother start dating another man. She kept in the family, she kept the relationship with the father, but she developed an affair with another man. That was between January and June. And before that, she was a good, nurturing, and protecting mother. She was perfect. I would say she was too perfect, but she was really, really a good mother. But then, being in love suddenly with another man, you know, this is something that happened in life. You can't prevent that. This is something which happened. You can answer yes or no. You have the freedom to answer, but she answered yes. So they developed that, and then she was like giving less and less attention to her child because she was involved in something else. Then the summer arrived. In May, she decided with the father that they will divorce, that they will split. She explained that to her child, who was in shock. That was in May, June. And then the mother said to the father, I would like to be this summer, not with you, but with my new lover. And would you accept to take our child to the countryside? He said yes. The child had a good relationship with both of them. They were both of them good parents, but the father was more anxious as a personality than the mother. The mother was calm, nurturing, protecting figure. But for the father, it was a shock too. It was a trauma too to have this new information. So what happened is that from one day to the other, this little child of 5 years old and a half, who was used to be protected by the mother, she lost the mother and she found her alone with the father. And then something get worse. The father, being traumatized, developed an affair with another woman, and all the summer they took cocaine together. So the father was unavailable to her child. So the child suddenly lost the mother and the father. In the countryside, she developed a friendship with a little girl of the same age. She was 6. My patient was 5. The little girl was 6. one night, my patient heard sirens and sirens and sirens. The next day, she learned that all the family perished in a fire. So his little friend died in that fire. So you understand that successively she lost the mother, the father, and the friend. When she came back at school, she did not want to go to school, but she did not remember anything of that. It was because I asked the mother to come and to explain me what happened, and then I asked many and many questions. But again, we found the trauma. We could understand what was the trauma, but we still had a disconnection between this information and the emotions. So I brought my patient to my classroom with my students, and I asked her to tell this story to my students. And it was only when she saw tears in the face of her students that she became emotional, and then she cried and cried. I am telling you that, and I am still emotional about it, you see. But we succeed. We succeed. She cried so much, so much. And then I asked each student to come and to sit in front of her and to reassure her and protect her. And they were fantastic. So that night we repaired the trauma. You see?
Yeah, that is that catharsis that she it's her first one. It's her first conscious
it was
in a safe environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great, great catharsis. I was happy, she was happy, everybody was happy. We were all emotional. It was good. This is something that will happen in our workshop when I will be with you in Ukraine. I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. So this is catharsis.
Thank you, Jules. Thank you.
This memory restoring. So what I did with this patient, I make her remind some events of her past history. I could not, I work, when I say I work a long time, I work 8 years. 8 years to I was like a detective, searching and searching and searching. And then when we have her mother, it was possible to put that together. But I think that if I have asked the mother to come earlier, she might be not ready to share that information. So we had to wait a lot to be able to do that. And then I work with my patient about memory restoring. And then we repair the psychotrauma with connecting all the emotions, repeating the story, and all this. And 6, we change negative emotion, which is shame, guilt, anger, doubt, everything, by positive emotion, trust, hope, good self-esteem, and good self-image. So knowing what happened and knowing that it is possible for her to never find herself in such a situation of total isolation, then can change the emotion. And then we integrate a new identity. But we can't develop a new identity without the history of our past life. So we reconstruct the identity, and then when we are able to that's okay. When we are able to understand the story, to have the catharsis, to restore memory, then we can change the emotions. We can change the negative emotions to positive emotions. And negative emotions are emotions like shame, guilt, anger, doubt, things like that. And on the opposite, good and positive emotion are trust, hope, good self-esteem, and self-image. So these are good emotions. When we have that, then we develop a new identity. We construct a new identity, which is better integrated. Because in my example, a part of the story of my patient was not integrated to the present life, it was separated. And from that were coming anxiety symptoms. When we solve that, we diminish with time the anxiety. When we do that, good emotions, integrated identity, then we feel we have more power, we have more capacities, we have more tools. So we feel a good self-esteem and a good power. We feel empowered. And then we develop new skills, abilities, capacities in personal, intimate, instrumental relationship, in work, social functions. So we become again able to cope with the other people and reality. And the last one, and the most important one, is resilience. And I want to read very slowly what is my definition of resilience. It is the capacity to respond to a perturbing event, traumatic event, with flexibility, with the ability to adjust oneself and to adapt to the situation, to control and to master the overwhelming emotions. So I can have, I was emotional a few minutes ago. It's finished. It's just a cloud. It's normal in life. We can't tell a story like that without any emotions. This is life. So to control the emotions, to reorganize one's thinking, emotions, and actions in order to better react to the perturbing events, to adversities, to stress, to circumstances that are not favorable. This is the capacity of resilience. The meaning of resilience includes the capacity to take a setback and to jump forward. So we retract and we jump. In the future, to better apprehend the coming difficulties, so and troubles and problems. So the meaning of resilience is always that we stop, we think, we go back, and then we jump. You see, this is very, very important. So would you have any comment or question on that section before we go to the next and yes, next section?
No, just crystal clear. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now prevention. Now prevention. When we work with people who have been traumatized by an event, we help them to overcome, but we help them to prevent. And this is the question you asked before. The people who went in 2014, if they are threatened, do they will be able to cope to this 2022? The answer is yes, if we help them to prevent. So there are two ways that we can help somebody to prevent PTSD and a psychotrauma. It might be personal and it might be social. So the personal is what we can do with ourselves. The social is what the environment can do for us. So we can, at page 12, I just present some things that we can say to ourselves. And like the fact that I am so touched or so profoundly moved doesn't mean that I am weak. This is what happened 5 minutes ago. Second, I have the capacity to be conscious and to identify my negative emotions, anxiety, fear, terror, anger, rage, disgust, sadness, powerlessness, guilt, doubt. Being able to understand, being able to be conscious and understand these emotions. Some people, they never know how they feel. They don't have a capacity of knowledge of their emotions. This is funny for me, but I would say that when you are trained in psychology, this is the first thing we do, try to recognize emotions. We have lists and lists and lists of emotions. We try to differentiate between what is, I don't know, I don't have examples. I can also say to myself, negate negative emotions that rise and increase inside myself will destroy me in one way or another if I try to deny. It's never a good thing to deny something. Denying means that we act as if this reality is not there. We can do that. If you walk in the streets and you try to deny that the fact that you are on an highway and there are cars, we know what will happen. So our emotions is exactly the same thing. That's it. If I am unable to identify and understand the negative emotion inside me, I can try to talk to somebody I trust. This is very important. Find somebody I trust to open to that person. We must have at least one person. Yeah. Another one, talking of my negative emotion will help me to master and contain them instead of being overwhelmed by them, and or try unsuccessfully to fight against them. And then saying that, I'm talking to men, not to women. It's men who have that problem. They think that they are in control, so they don't take into considerations that rage is building up inside themselves, or disgust is building up, or guilt, or anything else. Because they want so much to be in control, but this is an error. They will be more in control if they talk of that with somebody else. I would say something. In my office, usually a day work is 12 or 14 interviews in a row. So it starts at noon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 11, sometimes midnight too. So I receive 12, 14 people who express a lot of emotions. So I absorb all this. I need to have somebody with whom I will evacuate. If I don't do that, I will not be able to work the next day. But myself, with time, I also developed the capacity just to write down in my notebook, which is there. I will show it to you. This is my notebook. So the fact to write in that notebook helps me a lot, just to put a distance between the emotions and me, and especially negative emotions, because people, when they themselves they evacuate, it's full of danger, anxiety, fear, terror, depression, and all this. And it's important for them that I take it, that I take this emotion, that I absorb like a sponge. I absorb all this, and then I free them from these emotions. But I have to do something myself with that. Yeah. So this goes with for everybody. I am a specialist in psychology. I know how to treat myself, but people are not psychotherapists, practitioners, so they have to find somebody to be able to talk of themselves. What else? What? Yes, talking. I don't. Yeah, okay, I said that. Next one. The emotions I feel can help me to do what I have to do. Sometimes I have to take care of relatives. I have to do my work. So I will need these emotions if I know how to profit from these emotions. Myself, with time and with age, I am very flexible with my emotion. I get, how we say that, I can get emotional very easily, but I am really, really flexible. And the minute after, it's okay, it's past. But with my student, I can be like that. With you, I can be like that, but not with my patients. With my patients, I am the one who receive, who contain. So I have to, and I do it that way. But outside the office, I give me the permission to feel and to express. Being able to feel and express my emotions is an essential condition to overcome psychotrauma. Without that, no way, it's not possible. So this is very, very important. Feel and express. This is the best and fastest way to get rid of a psychotrauma and of a PTSD. And the last one, we may learn to develop our personal resilience. And I present there sources of resilience. I have 10 sources. Effective, flexible defense mechanism. Isolation is one, but we have many others. This is psychoanalytic theory. But in behavior modification theory, we talk of coping mechanism, coping strategies. So we have defense mechanisms which are conscious, and we have coping strategy which are conscious. They are ways to adapt to reality. Emotional abilities is a very good force that will serve and support resilience. Problem solving capacity is important too. Some people, it's difficult for them to solve issues. When you have that capacity, it will help resilience. Strong identity, self-esteem, and self-image is a plus for resilience. And I put there personal, profound, and thoughtful spirituality. People without spirituality, it's more difficult for them. 7, the capacity to develop life projects and determination to realize them. So people like me have always and always and always project and not enough time. But I have the determination to try to realize some of them. When we have that, it's good for resilience. The support from relatives is important. The community resources is important. And if you, in your workplace, if you have resources, it is important too. And the social, it's our community. It is our relative, our friends. They are there, they can support us. So this is the safety net they offer to us, and in which I would say we try to maintain the one for the others. So this is prevention. And for the conclusion, I just summarize the most important points concerning these concepts. So I can go through over that if it's okay with you. So we have to distinguish between a traumatic event, the objective conditions and the subjective perception. It's very, very summarized. Traumatic event, the psychotrauma that succeed, but not necessarily. You may have a traumatic event and no psychotrauma. The person will react to that with a good adaptation and coping strategies. So this is important. It's not because you have a traumatic event that you will be traumatized. It's possible that you will never be traumatized. So this is the second possibility. And then if you are traumatized and not treated, you may have a PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And if this is not treated, you may have complications. So the second idea, I would say that psychotrauma is a normal reaction for anybody. Psychotraumatic stress disorder, it's a long-standing psychopathology reaction. It is dysfunctional. The psychotrauma is a way to adapt, to digest to something. It is a normal reaction. But when we have a PTSD, it is an abnormal, long-standing reaction. Third, an exaggerated emotional reaction to a minor event may be the consequence of the fact that repressed emotions associated to previous psychotraumas are suddenly triggered and by the present event and become conscious again. So past trauma may be triggered by a present situation, and all the emotion, it gives an overflow. 4, certain emotional reaction to traumatic event may not appear directly, but only after a delay. The delay might be some weeks, some months, and some years. And sometimes it will never appear. This is possible that some people were injured, injured I think that's a good word, yes, with pieces of an explosion, and it goes in the brain. And the surgeon says, I will make more damage to go through there and take it away. It went so fast, so the tunnel is so small. If me, I have to go there, I will have to expand it, and I will do a lot of damages. So some people keep in themselves physically and psychologically something which will remain there. We hope that the emotions related to that will not be triggered by somebody, but we don't know. In the aftermath of a traumatic event, the perception distortions of the traumatic event may occur, and these distortions will include new emotions. So each time you have a distortion, each time you produce new emotion that goes with this. So it becomes very difficult to understand after a certain time with all the distortions and all the new emotions. we have to be a very good detective to understand what happened really, what were the objective conditions, because we are only dealing with subjective distortions. So this is something that, this is why we ask the people to tell the story again and again and again to understand, well, you did not say that the third time, and then you are saying something else. Which one is the exact one? Yeah. And you know, the interrogators, the police interrogators do the same thing with witnesses and with the criminal. They ask to repeat and repeat and repeat. So everybody does it for a crime and for a trauma. And I say this all the time to my colleague police officers. I tell them we do the same way, we do the same thing, but for two different reasons. Me, I have to find a trauma. You have to find a crime. It's very interesting, very interesting. It may, oh yes, the sixth one is very important. It may happen, but not all the time, that we are able to recover alone from a psychotrauma. This is possible, but not all the time. Getting the support and understanding from a relative, a friend, a colleague, or a professional will just help to recover faster, to shorten time. So it's, I would say, if we choose not to talk of that to somebody else, we take a chance and we are not sure that we will not develop psychotrauma and traumatic disorder. And especially in sexual aggression, which involves taboos, and we don't want to say to anybody what happened. We might be a teenager of 12, 13, 14 years old, male or female, and what happened, we don't like to open to that with other people, because we fear that they will laugh, that they will not be empathic and all this. Yeah. It is impossible to recover alone from a PTSD. It might be possible that we can recover alone from a psychotrauma, but not from a PTSD. This is not possible. The help of a professional is necessary in order to avoid complications and what we call chronicity. Chronicity is a long dysfunctional standing condition. Post-traumatic stress can be screened easily with the checklist of indicators as we saw previously. 9.
Jules, just a second. I just need to charge. There's a battery, some battery.
Yeah. Take your time.
Merci. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, good. 9. Post-traumatic stress is a mental health problem that can be treated, and it can consequently completely disappear. It's better that we don't go that far, but we have to understand that we can treat that. It's possible to treat that. and recover completely as if it never happened. But at the same time, when we treat that, we do prevention and we develop coping strategies. So the next time something happens, we are ready to react the good way. 10th, talking of oneself and of our emotions can help to understand and contain them all the time. Talking of the emotions will help. This is the function of language. This helps to contain and master them instead of be controlled and overwhelmed by these emotions. It is the rider who controls the horse or the horse who dominates the rider. This is a good image. Do you want that the horse dominates you? No. You want to control the horse, and the horse will, if you control it well, everything will go smoothly. The last one, post-traumatic stress prevention may be done at an individual and social level. As we said earlier, we have many things that we can say to ourselves. So that's it. That's it. This is the end of the theory about psychotrauma and PTSD.
Thank you.
So when we will start our workshop, we will start with the second part, which is the practice.
Yeah, and just a point from my side. Remember, in the very beginning, we had that introductional Zoom between you and we spoke of post-traumatic growth.
Yes.
And now when you mentioned, well, there's this metaphor or figure of speech between the horse and the rider, who is who. And in a well, proper conditions where the rider controls the horse, it is only for the better, because the horse is supposed to help the rider, is supposed to be controlled. So our traumas and our wounds are supposed to be controlled by our mind. Yes. And then they only work for better. Then they only work as our strength. Remember what you said? There was a book from one of your, one of the people from Canadian government, if I'm not mistaken. So my weakness is my strength, right?
Yes, you remember that. It was a Governor General. Yeah, Governor General by the name of Vanier. Vanier was his name, a general, a military. He was a military, but very humble, very humble, and spiritual person, very humble and spiritual person. Yes, and when I read that book, this stayed in my mind since then, and I always say that, you know, I am weak on that thing, but I will use this weakness to develop a strength to be able to work with you. You know, I can say the same thing working with your community. I am very weak because I am not there. I don't have the means. It's complicated for me to speak in English, everything. But from that, we develop a strength together. This is fantastic.
Yeah, and it reminds me of very first days of this terror, when the entire world stood up and they physically, mentally, emotionally, they felt us, you know, they supported, and they still do. And then, you know, stay strong with Ukraine. And we are strong with Ukraine because, yes, we are here in Ukraine doing the duty of our entire generation, you know, facing that terror for entire world.
Mm.
But then you guys from the outside, you being strong for us, which makes us stronger. Even though,
Yes.
as you just mentioned,
Yes.
you cannot maybe, you're weak because you feel empathetic and you feel compassion, that you'd like to be here physically, hold my hand, hold all of the Ukrainians,
Yes.
let them know, have an eye contact. But because you can be stronger from where you're coming from, we now have no right to even, to doubt our inner strength.
Yes.
So it's all these
Yes.
interconnections, and
Yeah.
but then again, it can be only done together.
Mhm. Good. Very good.
Thanks.